the Dhamma is something else. Into our lives, thinking about our lives, let's chant the Namaskara and observe the 5 precepts. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Today, I have a kind of an idea. Of course, I want to explain some really nice, interesting, hopefully very simple points to you. Dhamma points. We'll see where we are going to head in. I'm going to continue with the basics that we have covered here and there. Not all of you have been here all the time, but you got, I was mostly talking about one point so far. Sometimes I was talking a little bit deeper, sometimes a little bit more simpler. I will continue on that account. And I want to explain, this is my task for today, I want to explain all my thoughts surrounding one particular example. I will share with you the example. It might not be something relating to your life on the first look. At least I hope so. But even if not, when we are talking about the Dhamma, if you are clever, you will always see how it relates to your life. Because the Dhamma is one solution for all problems. You can say like that. Or, and putting it into another word, although we all seem to have very different lives and very different problems, ultimately we all have the same problem. And that problem, Dhamma solves. So either way you look at it, it won't be something wasted if you understand it. And I will try to explain you how you can understand it, how it relates to your life. I will try my very best to do that. So this is the thing I had in my mind. It's a very practical situation. Yesterday somebody told me about his parents. I was talking about this boy, and he told me about his parents. He told me that, I asked him, how many siblings do you have? And then he said, I have 2 brothers and I have 1 half sister. And then I said, okay, what are they doing? And then he said, the brother is doing this, and the other brother is doing that, here and there. I don't have much contact with my half-sister. And then I said, okay, yeah. I'm not too surprised about that, because that can be the case, right? I don't know what is really the situation behind that half-sister. But he started to tell me the story about it, without me asking for any details. And then he told me that, so what happened when I was young was, when I was a small kid, when my brothers and me, when we were small, things happened in our family, and my father, he had something with someone else, and out of that something, a baby was born that was sister, right? So that's how it happened. But he told me that he was, after that happened, so it seemed, he said he was a small kid, so he didn't understand at that time that his parents were going through a hard time. Must have been, of course, right? Otherwise nothing like that would happen. And that, however, after a few years, and all these things had to be resolved, now his parents were really in a very good relationship. So everything had been solved. He said whenever he comes to his family, he feels like they really love each other. He can really feel the love between his parents. And we both of us, we took a moment to appreciate how that is not something you can take for granted, given in such a situation. Given that the mother had been cheated on, obviously, and something must have been there. So we took that and we appreciated that, and I think that's really something. But that's not what I wanted to talk about mostly today. I was thinking now, if I were the wife or if I were the husband, either way, how would I deal with such a situation so that I can not suffer maybe all my life from what has happened? Because I think it's not easy to deal with such a situation when your partner has done something like that. Now, I don't want to suggest that any of you have similar problems or ever had or something like that, and I really don't care about it also. So you don't have to tell me or anything like that. But I think that, in one way or another, these are always things that can also happen to us in the future, no matter how old you are. And that's one aspect. And when we discuss the Dhamma, you will understand how you can, what really happens in our mind. And that understanding will be really helpful to you, because you all have relationships with people and they can always hurt you. They might not cheat on you in that sense, but cheating on you doesn't have to be in such a way. Cheating on you can simply mean you ask them for something and they don't tell you the truth. That could be just a friend at school. You're asking something and he's lying to you. Or maybe people talk behind your back about you. People laugh about you. I mean, in school, isn't that something kids do, or at work? These are things that happen everywhere. So that kind of cheating we can always experience, or we might have always experienced somehow. And the solution to all of these different kind of cheatings, let's say, are always the same. Therefore, I think you can understand it does relate to your life somehow. And the other thing is, how does a child feel in such a situation? That's another interesting point, right? Because a child, now he said that he had been so small that he didn't really notice anything wrong with his parents. I mean, he didn't know about what's really happened there. But I think I had many stories from friends where their parents had gone through difficult times. Sometimes it's very normal, especially when after the kids are born. I think these things can happen. The father is very busy working for the family, and the mother is overwhelmed with all the work at home. Has to do all this. I know my mother told me how she was feeling. Not that such a thing happened in my family, but I'm just saying. I know she always told me when she had 3 kids at home, very young, when she had to just run after us all day. She had 3 kids just after each other, so we were all very small. So she was basically bound, caged to the home. There was nothing else she could do. No one else she really spoke to. She just had to run after us and so bear our shoutings, bear our screams, bear our pains, somehow do all of these things and not fall apart herself. I mean, that is also tremendous sacrifice, right, for a person like that. The mother is sacrificing a lot in this situation, and the father, of course, sacrifices a lot as well, because he is going to work and he maybe has to earn all the money. He might also like to spend time with his family, but someone has to win the money, somebody has to bring in the money, and therefore everybody is in a big amount of tension. But sometimes the whole purpose of why we take upon the sacrifice, I mean, the mother sacrifices something for the family, father sacrifices something for the family. Sometimes the reason why the sacrifice is done gets lost, and then problems happen, or people start to feel the problem is, start to blame each other, or things like that. Because it's very normal that in our mind, when we are in a stressful situation, naturally our mind always is looking for or is blaming someone in the outside world. And then it can easily happen that it seems to be our partner who's at fault in the situation. So that's the nature of our minds. So there's a side point which I will explain you. That's a very mundane point of view, but it's also a good thing to understand. Nowadays, maybe people are looking for very instant gratifications, such as, going to just listening to music or just doing something and just immediately feeling good, like computer games, watching the phone, browsing through social media. These are instant gratification things, right? A very mundane wisdom, but still a very good one to understand, is that, of course, these instant gratifications do provide us with immediate happiness, but compare the happiness a mother or father has. Is that something called instant gratification? It's usually connected with a lot of sacrifice. So sometimes you might not even feel any happiness at that moment, in the times when you have to bath your children, when you have to endure their screams, when you have to, run after them, and maybe you wake up in the night because your child has pain. I remember how many times I had pain in my ears when I had the infections in my ears, and my mother or my father had to drive me to the hospital in the night when I was small. So at that moment, I'm sure they didn't like to do that, but they sacrificed that. And I think now when they look back 20 years later, a few years later, they can at least appreciate that all of the effort they have put in was for some greater cause. In that case, they can see me healthy, educated, strong, and they have a big part to play in this. And that's something that they will know that this sacrifice wasn't for nothing. I've contributed to some sort of goodness in this world, and that time was not wasted, although it was hard at that moment, right? So, you see, for their long-term happiness, that sacrifice was, we can say worth it, compared to enjoying instant gratification. Because what is the long-term benefit of instant gratification? If you have ever done it, I have done this. When you play games for a week or two, or when you indulge in, just watching TV all day, you will wake up one day having watched hours of TV, and you just ask yourself, what did I do with my time? What was the point of doing all of this? I felt good, but then, can I be proud of how I spent my life? Can I say that there's no one I can look at and say, at least I helped this person to grow, or I gave something to this world. So normally we feel very unhappy with ourselves when we have done these things. And then, actually, the price of the instant happiness is the long-term regrets, long-term not being okay with ourselves. We feel not clear with ourselves, or we have problems with others as well, because sometimes we're doing things and others don't know about it, so we have to hide, we have to find excuses, or we have to explain ourselves. These are all the things. So mundane understanding, very mundane but very important, is instant gratification versus sometimes things like sacrificing ourselves in that moment. The long-term happiness is it's much stronger, even though sometimes it feels like a sacrifice. So I'm sure, if I were to ask my mother, do you regret having brought us up and done all these things? I think she would not say yes. She would say it was worth it. And it was definitely worth it. Now she can look at the pictures and say, okay, she can laugh about it. When she sees herself stressed out in the picture, she can laugh about it. because she has contributed to something more than just herself, right? Something like that. But stress is stress anyways, right? So that's not something I wish anyone. I don't wish you to be stressed in that situation. And with the Dhamma, we hopefully can make our way into taking a sacrifice, taking our duties as wholeheartedly as possible, but not suffering that way that people used to do when they have a relationship, or when they have to be a mother, when you have to be a mother or a father, or it doesn't matter when you have to be a child as well. So I can imagine a child that, children are not, I can say, stupid, or not. Even a small baby might not know anything about this world, but the ability to read body language is always there, right? That is something, it's so within us. So you don't have to, I think even a baby will feel if something is wrong with the parents. The baby will know that somehow. You don't have to explain this. So I think if these conflicts happen in a family, like the one that this friend of mine told me, he knew it. He knew something was wrong. He maybe didn't know what was wrong, but he knew something was wrong. He could feel it. Just like we can all feel it. We can always feel other people. We don't have to, it's not something verbal. It just comes with everything that we see and the way we are treated, things like that. So even for a child, the question is, how do we deal with, maybe you have friends at school, maybe you know someone who's going through these situations where parents are in that situation and the child suffers a lot. I know, I can imagine how that feels. So I'll try to explain you a little bit how not to suffer in that situation. I will focus mostly on the person who's being cheated. But maybe I'll also talk about, what I will going to explain will apply to all of them. So I'm going to explain a little bit the Dhamma that we have learned so far and how it applies in this situation, and then maybe see where we'll go from there. And you can also start thinking about how would you apply the Dhamma, whatever Dhamma you understand in this situation. Right? Imagine that you are being cheated on. Not necessarily in that way. It could simply be somebody stole something from you, or somebody has lied to you, somebody has talked behind your back. Maybe you're being bullied, you have been bullied, it doesn't matter. What do you do in that situation? How do you feel? And what would you do with that situation? When somebody is cheating us, that's, first of all, a big pain, right? Or then somebody is talking behind our back, it's a painful feeling. And it's immediately giving us this feeling, this sense of inferiority, sense of I'm not valuable, maybe, or I'm insecurity, internal insecurity. That could be one of the things that we feel. And living with that can be a big burden for us. So when I knew someone who was cheated by someone else, and obviously he was hurt. He felt this insecurity, this internal insecurity feeling, and then his girlfriend at that time asked him, I'm sorry for what happened, shall we continue? Shall we continue the relationship? And then he was torn apart because he felt like, okay, if I say yes, that means I will allow myself to stay a victim. And if I say no, I will lose her. So what should I do? Seems like a lose-lose situation. Suffering comes either way. Right? So what he decided to do was, he said, okay, let's continue. And when he did that, a part of him acknowledged that she was such valuable person that he needed in his life. Therefore, he himself, what was the value he gave to himself? Not enough, right? He didn't value himself. And then he continued with that relationship, and after a few weeks and all this, constantly being reminded of what has happened, and whenever it reminded him what has happened, what his girlfriend did to him, it immediately sent him down into this hole where he was a unworthy person, or a person who doesn't deserve the same as others, because others look at others, they are not treated like that. Others, they are for example, whenever you see somebody happy with his relationship, then you feel this sense of inferiority, because you feel like your girlfriend cheated on you, but look at how that woman loves that friend of mine, right? So this comparison happens easily in us. So you will realize when you go through life, a lot of suffering in your life comes from comparing, right? Comparing yourself with others, comparing yourself according to the standards of society, and things like that. And I'm not saying that you should stop comparing yourself. Please don't understand me, please don't misunderstand me, because you can't just stop comparing yourself, right? Whether you like it or not, you compare yourself with others, or it's not something you do, it's something that happens in your mind. It's something very natural at the beginning for all of us. You just need to understand that it happens. All we really want to do is understand. But we are very used to compare, right? We learn something from somewhere, we pick up, like, in social media, we pick up norms and what is good, what is bad, and then we compare how much do I have with others and all these things. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it is a reality, right? So this sense of I'm not valuable enough is definitely something that happens with us. And whenever these memories come of what has happened, it sends us back into this inferiority. So I'll try to explain you one possible escape route with what we have so far understood that we can take. This feeling of inferiority that we sometimes feel. Have you ever felt this feeling? Just to be sure. You have felt this? Have you also felt sometimes superiority feelings? As in, maybe if you achieved something and others have achieved less, sometimes you might feel that. Right? Or when you have a subordinate, naturally you feel that superiority. When you have somebody who's doing something for you, it can easily happen. So we know both feelings. So if you were to say, I am inferior than others, can we say that generally? Can we say that, do you always feel inferiority? Do you always feel superiority? No, these are feelings that sometimes happen, sometimes even the same person, towards the same person we feel inferiority, or sometimes the opposite, right? So these are things actually our mind cooks up. These are things our mind feels in certain moments. These are not external realities, right? In the external world, you are not inferior to anyone, you are not superior to anyone. These are not things we can say. Although society will tell you that there is a natural hierarchy in society, according to which you are superior or inferior to someone else, that is only a convention. It is not something, that is not why you feel certain way, right? For example, I'll give you a small example about this. I don't know, the simplest example I can come up with is, there are two men and they have a partner. So now the man A, his girlfriend has brown hair, let's say, brown hair. So what I'm trying to explain here has nothing to do with relationships, but it's just an example that you can use. Yeah? So she has brown hair, and he likes women with brown hair. Can you say that? There's a view in his mind. I think brown hair is more pretty than blonde hair. Or, no, I'm sorry, no, this example came to me because in Germany and in Europe, in Germany typically we have both hair colors. Here I think it's more uniform color. I hope you forgive me for this example. You will understand the idea, right? So brown hair. Now this man's girlfriend has blonde hair. So this man has a view. He likes brown hair. That means there is a liking for that particular thing. And here there is a liking for blonde hair. So the man B, he prefers that kind of hairstyle, hair color. So now let me ask you, who is the winner, who's the loser in this situation? Who do you consider superior or inferior than the other? Well, you might all now argue differently, right? Depending on what you think valuable is. Now, if you say that that is something more valuable than brown hair, something more valuable than blonde hair, now definitely you should feel that he's the lucky one and he's the unlucky one, and the other way around, right? So of course, by the way, you can also change the genders here. So if you like, you can take a woman and her partner, and woman and her partner, right? So this is the same. However, the point is, if I ask you objectively who is lucky and who's unlucky, can you say that? No. But you all maybe feel different ways, depending on what your view is. Like if in your mind you have the view that brown hair is something valuable, now of course you might feel that he's the more lucky one. Maybe in your case, maybe this situation, if it's not abstract enough, you can take cars as another example. Like you see one person has a Ferrari, the other one has a BMW. So then who's the lucky one? Or maybe one has a Ferrari and another one has only a horse. Right? So who's the lucky one? Doesn't society give you an answer for that? Horse? How can you have a horse as a carriage? That's definitely an unlucky situation. But is it an objective reality? No, it's only an opinion, right? So in this case, I want to talk about this feeling of superiority and inferiority. So here, when this man looks at the other man and his partner, what does he think, or what will happen in that mind? Look at him. His girlfriend has blonde hair, but mine has brown hair. So therefore, will he feel superiority or inferiority? He will feel superiority. And about man B, what will he feel? Well, he feel, look at him, his girlfriend has brown hair now. My girlfriend has blonde hair. Therefore, he will also feel superiority, right? So you see, if two people can meet and they both feel superior compared to the other, there's something wrong, right? Because if superiority and inferiority are actually objective realities in the outside world, then only one can be superior to the other, right? You can't say 8 is bigger than 7 and 7 is bigger than 8, right? That doesn't work. Because numbers you can objectively order. There's one order that applies to numbers. There's no subjective order here. 8 is bigger than 7 and that's it, right? But if in this situation 7 is bigger than 8 and 8 is bigger than 7, so that makes no sense at all, right? So you can understand the outside world, the order in the outside world, even if there is an order, that order is not what gives you the way you feel. The way you feel is not because of what others have and what you have and things like that. It doesn't matter what you have or not. You see, it always depends on your views, right? For example, if this man got to know, let's say, if this man associates some people and he starts to get this view that actually blonde hair is much nicer, or I don't know, this example, let's say we are talking about cars. Let's say he has a Porsche and this other man has a Ferrari. Now, if he's associating people who tell him all the nice features about a Ferrari, after a while his view will get changed. So that might be changed. So then he will feel, I think Ferrari is actually better than a Porsche. So now he will start feeling the opposite. Now suddenly he will start feeling, actually my friend is the lucky one and I'm the unlucky one. But before that, he was feeling that I'm the lucky one. So you see, the point of this example I just wanted to show you is that whenever you feel superiority or whenever you feel inferiority, it doesn't mean that you are inferior. It doesn't mean that you are superior in the outside world. Or better to say, this feeling doesn't come from what you have, nor from what you don't have. So it's not because your girlfriend has this kind of hair color, or because of the car that you drive, that you feel like that. It is something that's cooked up in your mind, right? Because if I change the view, your feeling changes. How can that be? If it's something that's existing in the outside world, what your view is should not be important at all. But if I change this view into liking blonde hair, now the feeling will swap from superior into inferior. So where's the view? Is it something in the outside world? No, it's something internally. Therefore, this feeling is created in the inside. And that is a very good news. It's the best news that we can have, because that is the reason why we can actually achieve a life where we don't feel either of these feelings. Right? You might have to be a slave to someone else in the outside world. For example, people used to say that there was slavery. Some people were shipped from the African subcontinent to the American subcontinent, and they had to start working all night and day for some other people. And then they say that was slavery. So yes, it was slavery. And when we consider the physical body, there was real suffering, right? If you have to work 10 hours a day, there's no question about that. Suffering will be there. But to feel like I'm a slave, I'm inferior, that's something that the world doesn't give you. You can't accuse someone else for that. Right? So that suffering of being treated inferiority, you can't be treated in an inferior way. Right? Does it make sense? People might not look at you. That might be something they do. They might ignore you. They might even spit on you. But can they treat you inferior? They can spit on you, but why is that inferior? Why does it make you inferior? It's just spitting, right? Spitting is ultimately it's just some water coming onto your face. What's inferior in that? It is not in there. It's not in that behavior, right? That is what you need to understand. Because if you don't understand this, you will really believe, because he spit to me, he lied to me, because he talks behind my back, I am low. Or in this case, example we talked about is, because he or she cheated on me, I'm low. No, that is not the case. That's only a feeling that happens. So now this example, I think you understood, right? Good. Now I'll erase it. So the thing is, with these feelings of superiority and inferiority, these are things that we feel in certain environments or in certain situations, right? That means sometimes you feel inferiority, sometimes you feel superiority or inferiority, depending on what you experience, the experiences that comes from the outside world, as well as what you believe about them, your views. All these things are cooking up this feeling of superiority or inferiority, right? So, when do you typically feel superior? You don't always feel superior. You don't feel it all the time, right? You feel it in certain situations. If somebody is maybe appreciating you, or for example, when we are as a monk, if we don't contemplate, if somebody comes and worships us, the tendency of our mind is always to feel a sense of superiority in that moment. That is very natural. That's how we are born with. But when you contemplate, this feeling will go away, right? But ask yourself as well. This is a good contemplation. When do you feel superior and when do you feel inferior? You will see there are always a bunch of causes that come together and make that feeling arise. For example, you want something that you don't have, and somebody else has it. When you see that, that's when you feel inferior, right? But if you see something if you have something and you see somebody asking you for it and he doesn't have it, how do you feel in that moment? If a beggar comes to you and asks you for money, how do you feel in that moment? Typically you feel superior because you have something that he doesn't have, and from that comparison you feel superior. So you see, some moments we feel one, some moments we feel another, based on the trigger from the outside world and the views. So that's why we call it, it's only a manifestation. So that means, now let's take this man, let's take this woman who had been cheated by her husband. Does she now experience inferiority feelings? I mean, what the husband did, or that man did that create inferior feelings in her that now she has to live with for the next few years? Is it something like this? They were living happily, and because they all had trust in each other, and then this thing happened. Something happened. The unspoken thing happened. And from there onwards, she started to feel inferior feelings, right? Is it something like this? That's what we feel happens. So now we feel, because of the deed, here the affair happened, and that created this sense of inferiority within her, right? This created also the pain in her. So from this moment onwards, now she has to live with these feelings of inferiority. That's what we feel happens. That's what we feel, okay? feel? That's what a woman or a man or whoever would think has happened in this situation. But I'm stressing the point, think has happened. Because this didn't happen, okay? Because isn't it like this? Let's say 1 week ago, this in this case woman, we could also change gender, right? So it doesn't matter. This woman was cheated. And now, if that created a sense of inferiority within her, then that now she has to live with all day, every day, tomorrow morning, and until whenever, until possibly she gets rid of him or something like that. If that's the case, then explain me the following thing. Imagine that this woman goes, maybe she goes through the streets and she has a very beautiful dress. There's no such thing called a beautiful dress ultimately, but conventionally, that's a beautiful dress. Now, let's say her friend comes. She's also a woman and a very good friend of hers. And she looks at her and says, "Oh, you have such a lovely dress. That's the most beautiful dress I have ever seen. Where can I get this? Can you show me where I can find this? Please. I also want to have it like that." How do you think she feels in that moment? In that moment, she feels a sense of superiority, actually. Because there's somebody asking for something that she has and appreciating a value that she has, but that person doesn't have, right? Her friend doesn't have this dress. Maybe maybe even you feel that she's wearing something really ugly, right? You see your friend, she's wearing something very not stylish. And then she comes and tells you, "Oh, you have such a nice dress." So in that moment, isn't the feeling we feel superiority? So where did the inferiority feeling go? Where did it go? See, if she feels like this, she should feel like this all the time. All the time. But does she really feel like that all the time? No. Because there's nothing that was created in this situation. Okay? Nothing was created. No pain was done to you or to you or to that person. Right? That's why I always try to explain you this. Sometimes I try to explain you that everything in this world is only a manifestation. So in other words, there might be some bunch of causes, which, when they are present, manifest that feeling. So for example, when you see something and depending on what you like or don't like, this feeling happens. But these feelings are not created things. Similarly to the light that you see here. This light, is it something created? So what I mean with created is, once you bring together the causes, what are the causes for this light? You need to have a lamp at least, right? A lamp and electricity. So when these two causes come together, is this light created? Is it like, now it's off, now I put the plug into the wall socket, and now it's on? No. Because if that's the case, you don't need the electricity anymore, do you? You can remove it, and you still should see the light. But does it happen? No, because nothing is created. Similarly, that's why also, if you feel some, let's say, this example that we had, you have a Porsche and you feel Ferrari is better, and your friend has a Ferrari. Now you feel inferiority, right? But imagine that your view about the object changes. So your view changes. Before that, your view was Porsche is better than Ferrari. Now Ferrari is better than Porsche. So one of the causes has changed. So what will happen to your feeling? A different feeling will be there. So what happened to the old feeling? If it was something created, your feeling of inferiority, if it was something that was created within you, shouldn't it still be there with you? But it's not, right? So in the same way, this is not the reality. Okay? This is not the reality. Let me tell you what really happens. In the mind, there are always discrete events, right? In our mind, there are always discrete events. Seeing, hearing, thinking, tasting, and so on. How do we know that? How do we know that in our mind there are discrete events? If I ask you, where is the experience that happened 10 minutes ago? Where is the experience you had yesterday? Is it still with you? Is it still there? No, there's only ever one experience, right? I mean, right now, at least we can say, you're looking at me, you're hearing me, or things like that, right? But the hearing yesterday, the seeing yesterday, where did all these things happen? So, taking that point, now we can understand this feeling of superiority or inferiority. These are manifesting when certain causes come together. So as an example, whenever you are reminded of the thing that your partner did, or in this case, whenever this woman is reminded of what has happened to her, what happens? There's a memory that comes to the mind, right? There's a memory. So memory is also one of the things that our mind can perceive, right? It's one of the senses. The mind can perceive what kind of senses? Seeing, hearing, tasting, smelling, touching, thinking. So thinking is, memory is one of the ways that we consider thinking, right? We call it, in Pali we call it Mana Dhamma, but we don't have to call it Pali, we just can understand. One of the 6 senses is memory. So when a memory happens, the memory of what somebody did to you, now that feeling happens, right? This feeling of, oh, he cheated me, this feeling low, feeling being mistreated, these kind of feelings happen in that moment when the memory is there. But if somebody's asking you for money, what happens then? Where's that feeling? It's no longer there. No longer there. See? So when you are reminded of something that somebody has done, so I can ask you yourself, think about it. Think about something where you were cheated in the past, not in that sense, anything. Somebody lied to you, maybe somebody hurt you. It doesn't have to be cheating, somebody hurt you. Do you suffer from this feeling all the time? Do you feel it all the time? No. But sometimes, maybe even right now, when I say think about it, now you feel that. Because now the environment is ready for the memory to come, and when that memory comes to your mind, the pain of that might happen. Or when somebody else talks about it to you, that's when you feel it. So in other words, it's not that you are always suffering from that feeling. And actually, it's so good. Now we want to understand, why do you feel suffering in this moment? When I ask you to think about something that has happened in the past, why do we suffer? We have already discussed what really happens, right? What happens is actually our mind has a preference regarding the experience. So we don't like to think about that experience. In every chitta, in every experience, there's a comparison going on, or there's a comparison of an expectation. So this is the memory that happens. But while the memory happens, there's another process where it's comparing that. Is it a thing that I like to see? Is it a memory I like to experience? Is it an experience I like to see? So when these memories happen, the memory is actually just a memory. The memory what has happened in the past is not more than a memory. It can't give you pain. It's because of this expectation that I don't want others to cheat on me, or I don't want to think about this memory. Cheating is something bad. That's why we suffer. So more generally, the thing is, when somebody cheats on you, I've explained this to you before, I will explain it again. The cheating is just an event, actually. It's something that has happened in the outside world. And we have talked about it last week. There are these 3 layers. There's the postman, the idea of the postman. So things happen because of what we have given. In that case, that's how the event has unfolded. But mental suffering doesn't come from that. So again, that is the basic idea. Mental suffering is not something the outside world can give us. Let's say a disappointment or the cheating comes not from the outside world. This feeling of being hurt is not something the other people can do to you. Right? So in that case, because if you can't understand this point, will you not suffer a lot? Because whenever this woman will see her partner, what immediately happens is the memory of what has happened will come to her mind. When that memory comes to her mind, immediately she will feel hurt. And that's a trap you can't come out of easily. Because now you feel it's because of what he has done that he has given me this pain, or this feeling of inferiority that I have to live with that, or what he has done was why I'm hurt. Now you always feel that it's the outside things that gave me this feeling, but actually we need to understand it's something that our mind cooks up, this feeling of being hurt. You can't be hurt from others, and this feeling of inferiority is not something real. I mean, you are not inferior to anyone. Once you realize that this feeling is only a feeling, you will not actually believe it anymore. You will realize that this is not the outside reality. Being superior or being inferior is not something that you are actually. Because in this world, actually, everything is the same. So, similarly, when a small child experiences the parents are fighting, isn't that a big pain? Isn't that real suffering for a child to see the parents fight? What's the solution? What do you suggest we should do for a child in this situation? The only real solution that I see for a child is to make it understand that if you feel angry or not sad, then your parents are fighting. It's not because your parents are fighting. Because your parents that's just an external event. When you feel this pain within you, it happens because of an expectation, because of an attachment. The expectation is I want my parents to be always peaceful. I want them to be always good with each other. I don't want them to treat each other badly. This is the wanting, which is why the child suffers. So the child needs to understand that. Then you can separate the wanting and the outside events. And then you will understand it's not the outside world why I'm suffering. So if things like this would have happened to me as a teenager, I think I've gone through through hell basically, through a lot of stress and fears, and what if my parents will divorce? And what's going to happen with me? See, what's going to happen and where will I live? And then because when I was a child, as a teenager, I really believed that if my parents are splitting up, that would be a big disaster for me. It would give me a lot of pain. And in society, they always talk about the fact that when these things happen, these are bad events. These are things which have suffering. A divorce is something bad. As in, a divorce can create suffering to others. Isn't that what society always tells? That is not true. When you contemplate on the Dhamma, you will realize it's just an event that happens, nothing more. Yes, of course, physically there might be discomforts. Of course. If somebody doesn't look after us, we might have to starve. Physical, I'm not talking about that, but this mental being left alone by others, or when others talk behind our back. Again, these are not things where others inflict us suffering. You just need to understand it happens because there's a wanting for others should be like that to me. Because that's something good, that's something that gives pleasure. Right? Now you can understand these are feelings which are cooked up in the mind when the right trigger is there and when certain views are there. That's what you need to focus on. So, this is a basic layer of how you can contemplate in that situation. Of course, we can say, if somebody is doing that to me, that's only a vipaka that comes back to us because of something that we have done. We might not remember what we have done. We might not know anything about this. But now this is the time when the environment is right and that deed should come back to us. So even understanding that can help you to, not to blame the other person, but to understand that it was something that I have done. So if I don't want to get it back, I can't change anything about it right now. All I can really do is try not to create the environment for it to come back to me again. And that means you know that you can change your attitudes and you shouldn't behave towards others like that. But it's not just not doing it to others, of course. But even in your attitude towards that person, you are making it, you can attract it in certain ways. By the way that, because as I explained last week, some of you were not here last week, we are all fighting our own battles. In other words, we all suffer because of what we have done, or suffering happens within us. Suffering never comes from the outside world. We cannot give happiness to others. Likewise, we can't expect others to make us happy. It is a big irony because all of these things that we are doing in society is based on that idea, right? I mean, ultimately, why does somebody go into a relationship? If you would understand truly that happiness is not something others can give me, you wouldn't go do it. But ultimately, that's the reality. Even if you are in a relationship or things like that, understanding that reality is something I would advise you strongly to do, because otherwise you will have expectations for some things that you can never be fulfilled. I mean, if you expect for others to make you happy, and if you think that they can do that, now you will never be satisfied with anyone, not with that person, not with another person. There will always be problems, and you will always feel, why is he or she not doing that? Why? And that will be the problem that you have, and you will fight for that. But you need to realize that's the wrong problem to solve. That's not what matters. What matters is you feel that you don't have enough, right? So in our Sangha Vasa, we have this saying that happiness is not looking for a better situation, but happiness is seeing the best in the situation that you have. Actually, when you say seeing the best in your situation, it sounds like, well, it is somehow bad, but let's try to see the best out of it. It's not like that. Actually, in a deeper way, the Buddha was such a genius that he was able to explain us that when you see the best in your situation, you will realize that there's actually nothing wrong with that situation at all. There was never anything wrong with that situation. So once you come to that realization, you will no longer try to solve the problem. The problem that is that you are in a bad situation. The the feeling that you are in a bad situation is the problem, not that you are in a bad situation, right? That's why when our mind has ignorance, it cooks up a story, it cooks up a feeling, and when we are ignorant, we think that that is true, and therefore we try to solve that. We try to solve the problem, but actually solving a problem is always the thing that makes the problem worse. As I explained another day, when we try to solve a problem, we create another, or actually two others, right? So we never solve any problems. We just, yes, we feel that this problem is solved. I mean, for example, this woman can, of course, decide to divorce, and it's depending on society and cultural laws and so on. I can't say anything about that. That's not my business. But generally speaking, that's totally fine. But the thing is, that is not the solution to the problem of her suffering, right? Because once you have been disappointed once, you will always carry that feeling that others might disappoint you again into the future. So even if nothing ever happens again, you will always have to suffer from this what if it happens? And this inability to trust others, right? You can't trust others because you have been hurt before, and now you never want this to happen again. Ultimately, the solution to trust problems is not finding somebody who you can trust. That is something good. You can't really, and that's something you can only do not by checking and looking at people exactly. This is the irony, right? You want people to trust you. So what do? You check exactly whether they are trustworthy. How do others feel when you do that? That you don't trust them, right? Because if you're checking whether I don't trust my girlfriend, maybe she's texting with another boy. So then you check her phone. So what will she think now? He doesn't trust me. So then actually you are attracting what you don't want to attract, right? So this is the biggest irony of all, actually. So what's the solution to being able to trust your surrounding? The only thing you can really do is to be someone others can trust, right? If you can be someone that others can trust, you can hope that they will also be someone that you can trust. They might not. If you're very unlucky, because unless you are married to an arahant, which is ironical because an arahant would not be married, I can't say that. He might be, but I know there's a rule that a layperson can only live for 7 days. As an arahant, then he will die. I don't know whether that rule is true or not. Anyway, these are hypothetical topics. Let's not go into these kind of things. Generally speaking, we can say that, of course, an arahant wouldn't have any motivation to be married, so let's forget about this point. So, in other words, unless that's true, can't the other mind, your partner, whoever, can't he attract a bad vipaka, such of the sort that he or she might at least feel some attraction to someone else? That's very normal. If that's not the case, then I don't know. Then something is wrong, because the logic is very clear. Right? This is how our mind works. Even another partner she might promise you, I will never think about anyone else. Yeah, you can say that, but it's not really. You can't do it. I mean, feeling is one. I don't say that. Doing is another thing. But the feeling of attraction is something that happens. It's not something we do actually, right? Basically, the causes come together. That feeling is there. It doesn't mean that we should live with it and accept it. Oh, okay, then I have a right to feel like that. Yes, you have a right to feel like that in the sense that it's not a problem if it happens, but there's a way out of that, and that path we have to take, because there are things we can do, practicing the Dhamma, acquiring wisdom, doing merits, to change our gati, that tendency of our mind. So, the thing is, to deal with trust issues is, first of all, you need to realize what our tendency is if we don't trust others is we try to make sure that we can trust the others. That's not the way. That will never give you peace of mind, because no matter how much they will assure you that you can trust them, you will never be sure enough. Your mind will always want more proof and more proof and more proof, and until you install all the cameras, and then definitely you won't have any living person with you anymore, because you will feel like he's a prisoner. So that's not the way. You have to become a person whose others can trust. That's what you will attract. But you can't be sure. Sometimes people will still cheat you. So that is the basis of cause. And this is what we give is what we get. That layer, right? That's the application of the layer. What we give is what we get. The way I understand it. Because if we have cheated others, or if we have broken others' trust, then this can happen to us. Then of course we can understand that. Why do we feel hurt if others break our trust? It's because there's something that we are it's basically something that we own. Something that either we expect from others or something that we consider ourselves. Right? It's a kind of a belonging. Then that can be our trust. It's when we have the sense of belonging. Now this is my pen, it's very valuable. So, if somebody steals it, now you can lose trust in that person. Right? So the problem is we have something that we consider our own. We have this sense of belonging. Or we have a wanting. You can see it either way, wanting or sense of belonging. That's why we suffer. So the people can maybe break our trust, but that is not why we suffer mentally. The mental suffering comes because of mentally created. For example, when people come too close to you, as in physically, isn't there a distance when they're in shredding into your private space? So isn't it ironical? Don't you feel like the space around you is yours? Who said that? Is that an objective reality? I mean, does the fly know that it belongs to you when it's flying around on your skin? Does the fly even know that it's landing on you and that these atoms in your face are actually yours? Do you think the atoms in your face know that they are yours? But don't you feel that they're yours? Yeah, so you can see. To prove this sense of belonging one more time, this is also a very important point. I'll give you this another example. So there's a man, I can nearly draw the same thing again like last time. So there's a man and a woman holding hands walking through the streets, okay? Now, let me ask you, who in this picture is married to whom? And who's single? Please tell me. Is he married to her? Is he married to her? Is she not married to him? How do you know? Is she single or not? Or is she in a relationship or maybe married? Or is she together with both of them? I mean, they are related. It's not typically this way, but in countries, there are countries in this world where men are at least married to two women, right? So is he married to both of them? Can't say, right? Can you find out can you find it out? How can we find it out? You can ask him. are you married or not? So he will say, so if he's married, he will say, I'm married, right? If he's not married, he will say, I'm not married. Is it like that? He will say something, right? So then, what value is what he's saying? What value is in what he's telling you? Is there any value in that? Nothing. Let's say he's showing you the marriage certificate. So that's only something he can have, right? No one else can have a marriage certificate, right? Or can't this thing be forged? Can be. So therefore, maybe he's showing you a marriage certificate, and he has a twin brother that you don't know. So that's actually him who got married at that time. So when you see the marriage certificate, then, or maybe on the marriage certificate his name is John. Then you say, okay, I don't know whether you're John or not, so show me your passport. And he's showing you, yeah, look, I'm John. So in the passport, what do you see? John, and there's a face, right? Then you say, yeah, okay, he's right? But that face could be his twin brother, right? So therefore, all that you can experience is sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. Based from these things, how can you really know anything about who's married to whom? Right? So, because you can see a picture. The thing is, when you see that picture, after you see that picture, what happens in your mind? Let's say, you see only this. So what do you know? Nothing. But don't you feel that there is an external reality of who's married to whom? I just don't know it. Now let me find it out. Right? Now, you go and ask this man, who are you married to? And he will say, I'm married to her. And you say, prove it. And you say, okay, here's a certificate. Now on that certificate, it gives his name and her name. And then still we can't say, prove it. Show me your passport. Okay, passport, picture. Now that we see the picture, we say, okay, good, fine. So then, after we see the picture, what happens? Now we feel, don't we? Now we feel they're married, right? So for example, next day, what if this woman walks hand in hand with this man? How will you feel about it now? Oh my God, he's cheating. That's not good. But do you know whether it's cheating or not? Maybe in the night, they agree to divorce and marry another person. Could have been. So what's the problem with that? Nothing is a problem. See, all this is created in your mind. There's nothing in the outside world happening like that. See? So actually what happens is, your mind decides that, okay, now they're married, right? So now you start feeling that they are married. But who married them? Who married them? You. For the Buddha, it's something like this. Of course, there are many minds, right? It's a very fast process. There are many thought moments every minute, every second. So even in 1 second, we consider there might be 1 million or billion of them. And you don't experience them individually. You experience only an aggregation of that, right? So it's not like there's a subconscious mind. In other words, while this happens, another mind happens somewhere down, something like that is not there. Right? But I would simply say there are so many processes going on, and we only experience the surface of that. Something like that. So these are not things we consciously do, of course, right? I mean, now we are just going to explain, what I'm going to do is, I'm explaining what subconscious mind really means, or what really happens deep down in your mind that you don't really know, right? For example, when we're talking about the sense of belonging, now what I'm trying to explain you at this moment is that the feeling of belonging, that you feel after you do this interrogation process, after you interview them, now you feel that actually they're married. And actually you feel the belongingness as it exists in the outside world, right? But do you really do that? Because let's say, after this interrogation process, now you feel that they are married, right? But then the day after, he comes back to you and tells you, yesterday I did a prank on you. Actually, it's my twin brother who's married to her, but I'm just a brother. So was he ever married? But didn't you feel that he is married? Now, therefore, what can we conclude about this feeling? Is it feeling the outside world as it really is, or is it just a feeling that created in our own mind? I mean, it must be. Otherwise, it can't be the thing that's out there. It must be created in our mind. Just like beauty as well. Right? It must be. We don't know how it happens. I mean, this is also a good topic to talk about. How does this thing happen? I can't... I will try to explain this to you over the next few weeks. Actually, next 7 weeks I'm not going to be there. Some other Swaminatha has to, because I will have to go to Germany for that time. But after that I will explain. If the other Swaminatha doesn't do it, I will explain to you how this feeling of belonging is created. But the thing you need to understand is that the feeling of belonging that you feel is something created in your mind. It is not the belonging that the world actually has that you feel. So in that sense, we don't really know whether the world has actually belonging or not. Right? Whether in the outside world really something belongs to you or not, we will never be able to know that, because this is something beyond our realm of experience. Right? All you really need to understand is, you feel that, for example, don't you feel that you are single / married / in a relationship / not in a relationship at this moment? Don't you feel it? Some answer you will have, right? Now let me ask you, let's say you feel that you are married at this moment. Now, what if last night somebody woke you up in the middle of the night, and in the middle of the night, and you were half sleep drunken, you don't remember any of this, but in that moment, for 10 minutes, somebody asked you to sign some divorce papers or maybe marry you to someone else. I mean, theoretically, could it not happen? Or maybe, I don't know, in the middle of the night, somebody woke you up and divorced you. I mean, you were forced to divorce or something like that, and you married someone else, and somebody gave you some kind of a pill after which you forget all of these things. Right? I mean, for example, a person who has Alzheimer's, if you ask him about, are you married or not, what will he say? I don't know. Wife? What's the wife? I don't know. Right? So his wife will come to him and say, hey, I'm your wife. He would say, who are you? I don't. So that means, legally, if you ask the government what will they say? Of course he's married. Right? She will say, yes, of course, he's my husband. He will say, I don't know. I don't feel it. See? If it's something that exists in the outside world, you should see it somehow, right? You should somehow... But how do you see it? Let's say these two are walking and they have the same ring. I mean, not the same ring, but the same... A nice ring. It has the same shape, same color. Both have the same ring. So, now they're married, right? Right? We don't know. Could be brother and sister. Right? So this is the thing. Even you feel that your mother, you feel the motherness is there, right? Don't you? The motherness. Is it really there? Or is it something your mind cooks up? Motherness is in, I mean, if there's when you were born, what we feel, something like that. There's a mother, and she gave birth to a child. And there's a relationship between them. That relationship happens in the real world, isn't it? So, for example, if the child of a mother dies, the mother suffers, right? How does that work? How does it work? Something happens in the outside world, doesn't it? Somehow. Because it's not every child, it's not every mother that suffers, right? When this child dies, it's only her mother that suffers, no any other mother. So then it's because between them there's a relationship that doesn't exist between others, isn't it? That's what we feel. What the Buddha tried to explain you is that there's actually no relationship whatsoever. How do we prove that? Let's say this is really the mother of that child, right? Now, but at the hospital, when you were born, you were swapped. That was not you, means that child was swapped. That child was swapped. So that child was swapped with another child. So then that child grows up thinking that so this is a woman here. She's adopting this child. She's adopting that child. And this child doesn't know that it has happened, okay? This child grows up believing that this is the woman who gave birth to me, this is my mother. When this child sees that person, what will he or she feel? This is a woman. He might even have lustful feelings for her, right? If she grows up. So, it's actually his mother. Then if we were to say, because people say, no, this is a bit of a topic we normally don't talk about, but I'll try to explain it. People in the society say that normally we never feel lustful attraction towards our parents. Why? Because such a thing does not exist in the world. This attraction doesn't happen in the world. But there's another attraction that happens but otherwise it happens, right? People feel that these attractions are real external things. People are attracted to each other in the sense of a real thing that happens here. But the thing is this, he feels this as a mother, so let's say he will never feel any sort of this kind of feelings towards her. But his mother, he feels as a woman, so he will feel that. See, he feels this is a mother, so if she dies, what will the child feel? Very sad. But if this mother dies, if his mother dies, what he will feel? Just a woman. I don't know her. See? So actually, his mother died, what does he feel? He doesn't feel anything, right? If his mother dies, he doesn't feel anything. So then can we say that the death of the mother is the reason why a child suffers? No, it can't be. Because the mother was where all along. Is the motherness in that object or in that object? No, it's only a feeling in the mind of that child. If you were to tell that child, by the way, you were adopted, and I show him some proof, because as I explained to you before, how can you prove these things? How can you prove that you were adopted? You can show some pictures. And when does adoption happen even? When does adoption happen? When you have a child in the hospital, if another woman comes and touches it, do you consider that she adopted it? No, she just touched it. If she walks out of the room, do you consider she adopted it? No. If she walks out into the room after that, second room, is it adoption? No. So how many meters does she have to walk for you to call it an adoption? Let's say she takes it home for a day and brings it back. Is it an adoption? So 2 days, 3 days, how many days? See, every country will have its own conventional rules, what they consider an adoption, right? And who can adopt whom? What are the criteria? How much money the parents have to earn for there to be an adoption that is possible? See, all these things are conventional agreements, and if people change the rules, then they can change the rules. Just like I explained to you this example of the Pluto. There was a day when scientists decided that Pluto is no longer a planet, right? So it's no longer part of the planets of the solar system. So it doesn't belong to the solar system anymore. So, did anything about the Pluto change? If this is really a planet, then something about it should have been changed. If something planet-like should be there. Or if something mother-like should be there. Where is the motherness in this woman? It's only a feeling all along. That's what we have to understand. Otherwise, you will live in a dream. You will live in a big dream and you will suffer all your life because of you living in a story that's not real. That's why we have to realize this. Otherwise, I'm not saying, by the way, when you realize that this feeling of mother is only a feeling, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't fulfill your duties or the best that you can. Of course you should do that. You should be, in that sense, this is the funny thing, because the Buddha on one hand says mother and father are special, so you should treat them as best as you can. I talked about it last week, right? How fortunate you are if you have the chance to serve your parents, because your parents are actually, it is because of your good merits that they have raised you, that they gave birth to you, they gave you the chance to be born in this time where the Dhamma exists and be human even. Now I want to show you this video. Good that we come to this. Actually, we will watch this video. So it's because of your good merits that this has happened, but you don't realize. If you just, make use of it, and when you're 20, you're going out into the world and you're living your own life, then you just consumed all the merits that you had, and that's it. But merits are gone once they're consumed. But if you can make sure that you earn merits while you have the chance to do that, and one of the best ways is to make sure that you serve your parents. Serving can mean very different things. It doesn't mean you have to, become a slave. It just means take some work off from their shoulders, or you can also encourage them spiritually, encourage them to do merits, encourage them to do something so that when they pass away, they don't need you anymore in their lives, right? If you can encourage your parents to do merits, then these merits will serve them when they die, but you can't serve them when they die. Let alone the fact that if they are if they never realize that children doesn't bring them happiness, what will happen when they die? Don't you think that they will just, sometimes we hear these stories, they come into the houses and live as ghosts. They will haunt you when you're dead. There's not good for anyone of that. Because that is not, these relationships between families, they are not just to feel good. That's what people think. I like to be with my parents. Yeah, that's good. It's not a problem to enjoy that. That's your merits. Because of that, you feel that. But, however, it's not the end of it. That's not that's not real enjoyment. Really, you know that it's not real enjoyment. Spend 2 weeks with your parents, and then you will realize that when teenagers, when they spend every day with their parents, they want to run away. and then later, then they'll be more happy to see them again for a few days, but after a few days is already enough. See, so you can't really enjoy that, because that's only a release of vexation. But however, all the things you do to uplift them spiritually, or even if it's not spiritually, then at least, to provide them physical comfort, and to make sure that they will be well off in their later lives. I mean, even that effort is not an effort that you do for them and sacrificing your own happiness. The reason why the Buddha said that is not to give you punishment. Actually, it's an opportunity. The opportunity is when you realize that happiness is not in the outside world, it's not in doing a career, it's not in having the greatest job, being the most busy person, having the most money. These things are okay, not a problem, but more happiness can be earned by achieving happiness on the inside, and that one of the most important requirements is merits. And that merits you can earn by serving your parents, because in that sense they are special to you. But that feeling of mother or father, that has nothing to do with that. I mean, these feelings are something else. These feelings are cooked up in our own mind, and because of that we suffer. And then, so what I tried to explain to you at the end was sense of belonging. I gave 2 examples, mother-child, as well as these man and woman walking through the street. These are only cooked up in our own minds. You can extend the same example to other situations in your life. The pen that you're using, the clothes that you're wearing, the pictures hanging in your room, right? So when the flood comes and it's destroying your house, what God will think is a house has been destroyed, right? That's what God will think, or the nature will think. Only you will think that my house has been destroyed. So because you think something God doesn't see, you suffer, because you created it. You created the feeling of belonging, now you suffer from it. It was never yours all along. It was given for you to live in it, because of something you have given. But that is something given this is a merit that you're consuming. The day you don't have the merits, using won't be allowed, because nature is exactly fair. If you haven't given, there's no reason for you to get it. So just because you were able to buy a house doesn't mean that you will be able to live with it for the next 10 years, because for every day that you live in it, you're spending merits that you must have earned. If you haven't earned them, you can't get it. So this is how it works. So actually, it's not yours all along. You feel that it's yours, but it's not yours. So once you realize that it is just a feeling, then if somebody breaks in, then he's not breaking into your house. Then what happens is simply, at that moment, a vipaka is drawn, or the causes are arranged in such a way that this person is opening the house. It was not yours anyways. So that's it for today in terms of Dhamma. I wanted to show you this video, and I hope we can, it's probably 15 minutes. So this video is talking about the 7 great wonders. That means actually 7 things that we can be incredibly fortunate to have at this moment in this life. And I need to say that some of the scenes are not very, very nice to see. Sometimes you might want to close your eyes if you are a bit sensitive. These are not brutal killings or things like you will see there, not like that. But there are some scenes which might strike you if you are sensitive to them. But I don't think it's anything wrong with showing you, because it's perfectly valid, and it will hopefully strike a chord with you and make you think about what you're supposed to do with your life and how valuable you are to be alive at this moment. Especially if you can start understanding that there is a truth beyond the truth that you and the people around you mostly talk about, which is the societal truth in quotation mark. That truth of things belong to this and that, and beauty is there in the world. All these things are not true. And because of that, we suffer. So I hope that the video didn't create any wrong feelings in you. I think the message is very strong and clear. I don't have to spell it out for you. I only can say finally that we have to finish, but I want to say that when I started to look for the real teachings of the Buddha, I traveled around the whole world by bicycle. I met many monks, many countries. I spent time in many countries. In Myanmar, I spent nearly 2 years meditating. I learned some Dhamma there. Before that, I thought that that's not hard to finding out what the Buddha has taught is not hard. You just go to a Buddhist monk and ask him. It was my idea 7 years ago, maybe. When I started to do that, I found out that, oh my God, how hard is it to know? Even to know, let alone to understand, that's another thing. Getting to know is one, understanding is another, practicing is another, step by step, however. But, so it took me a few years, hard work, lots of merits, and still it's lucky, just a few years. I mean, even if it's 70 years of looking for it, that's still lucky, because at least I found. Most of the times in the past samsara, I have looked for the truth and have never found it because I wasn't deserving of it. Right now, it's a chance to find it, and we are very close, in my understanding. And the chance never comes twice in samsara, right? Because either you use it or you lose it. That's how vipaka works. And therefore, I don't wish that for anyone. So I will try my best, and in the next few weeks, the Swaminathan who's coming will try his best to explain you why Nibbāna is the only salvation, why you should try your best to do whatever you can to attain Nibbāna. Whatever time you have left, whatever energy and skills you have left. Not because it's a kind of a downer. I hope you don't get me as a kind of a downer here to tell you don't do these things and blah 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 blah. I don't do this kind of stuff. It's something I never like to get morally advised from people. These are things which make sense to me when I understand them. And they make sense to my life. And I know how it is to have a relationship and to have a breakup, and I know how it is suffering from conflicts in your family or in society. These are just normal things. They are not. I can't even call it suffering if I look at what has happened in these pictures. Right? So these things I never had to experience in this life. So the Buddha himself said that when he got to go through these 6 years of austerity practice, it was because of his sins he had to do that. It was not because of his merits he had to strive 6 years and eat fruits and starve himself to death. He was led onto the wrong path for 6 years because he had led people to the wrong path. That he had to pay off. So people who have to, get punished by going through various pains and getting tortured, that is what they have given. And being misled is something we have given. We have misled people in the past samsara into a journey that was not based on the truth at all. And if I will just simply say that everything we have done in this life, telling someone that pleasure exists in the outside world is a lie. That is a sin. Not in be aware, you should be afraid, you go to hell or something. No, I'm not saying about that. But it is not true. But how ironical is it that we all believe that, everyone believes that in the whole world. And I also believed that all my life, until I saw the evidence. And then only I started to change my life. At least the way I think. Not necessarily what you do, but the way I think. But for that you need to understand that it's not too hard. You just need to learn merits, come here and try your best to go on this journey. It's always Karuna Sasana and Pranya Sasana, right? This sasana is these two aspects. Karuna Sasana means we do for others what we can do, and Pranya Sasana means we do, first of all, for ourselves what we need to do, which is developing the wisdom by coming to the sermon, applying and contemplating, and trying to realize. Only when we are finding our own salvation, we can help others find that same. Otherwise, I couldn't come to you here just giving you a lecture of things I have learned from someone. Because all these things are things I think about every day, and I apply them, and I try to solve my own defilements with these things. Lustful feelings, anger, ego, all these things I deal with this tool. Otherwise, I would be nowhere. So that's what we have to do. Only then I can share these things with you and make it more like a lecture. Otherwise, I could just read you the Tripitaka, but there's no point in doing that as well. You will learn a lot, but you will not understand or realize anything. So I hope that I'm very sure, next Swaminathan will, for the next few weeks, definitely, continue in the same way. He will have his own style, but he will pick you up somewhere and bring you closer to Nibbāna, which is what I wish for all of you to happen in this very life. So that's all I have to say for today. I'm sorry for the bit of a delay today. Now we can go and have a Buddha Puja and engage in some meritorious deeds. And okay, then let's share our merits. Let us take a moment to transfer all the merits we have acquired today by making offerings to the infinite virtues of the Noble Triple Gem, chanting Pirit, listening to the Dhamma and engaging in various meritorious deeds today. First and foremost, let us transfer these merits to all the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, upasakas and upasikas who since time immemorial have protected and preserved the sublime teachings of the Buddha, and have passed it down through the generations of the noble lineage in the form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available to us today to study and understand and comprehend the Dhamma. Let's also transfer these merits to all members of the Mahasangha present throughout the world, including the chief prelates of all of the chapters, who have dedicated their lives towards the betterment of all sentient beings and have committed themselves to the noble path. Let's not forget that among them are the monks and nuns resident in your local temples and nunneries who have always been by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let's also transfer these merits to Buddha Swaminathan, as well as all the monks resident at the monastery, as well as the Anagarika and Anagarika attached to the monastery. Let's also transfer these merits and express our gratitude to all those who make great efforts to disseminate the teachings of the Buddha, either by transliterating these sermons, sharing them out with others, or inviting others to join them. If any of them have been born in the woeful plane, may they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also transfer these merits to our devotees, friends of the monastery, who for the sake of merits continue to sustain the Mahasangha. Let's also transfer these merits to everyone, each and everyone who is engaged in organizing this event, everyone at the school and everyone who's coming here today in various ways and supporting. May through the power of these merits they be healed of any physical and mental ailments and overcome any obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also transfer these merits to our mothers and fathers, husbands and wives, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews and nieces, our elders, friends and acquaintances, employers and employees, our teachers, and all those who have helped us and supported us in every way, shape or form they could. May through the power of these merits they be healed of any physical and mental ailments and overcome any obstacles to their spiritual progress. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also transfer these merits to the Devas and Brahmas, spirits and demons, primarily the Sakradeva, as well as all the numerous gods and deities who are committed to protect and fulfill the Sambuddha Sasana. Let's also transfer these merits to our guardian deities who keep a watchful eye over us and keep us out of harm's way. May through the power of these merits they be healed of any May through all these merits they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also transfer these merits to our ancestors, to all those who have predeceased us, to all those who have been family and friends to us in this infinitely long journey of samsara. And let's also transfer these merits to all members of the armed forces as well as the police force who have sacrificed their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation. May all those who lost their lives in the war, be they friend or foe, rejoice in the merits we've acquired today. Let's also transfer these merits to all those who lost their lives in natural calamities such as tsunamis, earthquakes, landslides and pandemics, reminding ourselves that among them will be those who have been family and friends to us in this infinite long journey of samsara. May through the power of these merits, if any of them have been born in a woeful plane, they redeem themselves and be born in a blissful plane. May they abstain from the unmeritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbāna. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Finally, let us all resolve that may, through the power and blessings of all the merits we've acquired throughout the day, we be able to witness the advent of many hundreds of thousands of Arahants on this blessed land. And finally, let us all resolve that may, through the power of all the merits we've acquired today, you and I and everyone who has helped to make this program a success, become an Arahatanhanse and Arahat Mahinanhanse in this very life itself, in the era of the Gautama Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Now the Mahasangha will transfer the blessings to you. Raga ginnin midetva, dvesha ginnin midetva, moha ginnin midetva, Nibbāna parama sukhayan, sukhita taravetva. Nibbāna parama sukhayan, sukhita taravetva. Mamada sialo loka, sialo sattvayo. Nibbāna parama sukhayan, sukhita taravetva. Nibbāna parama sukhayan, sukhita taravetva. Nibbāna parama sukhayan, sukhita taravetva. Raga gini niveva, dvesha gini niveva, moha gini niveva, nivan sapalabheva, nivan sapalabheva, nivan sapalabheva. Tunuruwange suvisi ananta mahagundalan siyala loka siyala satya Nibbāna parama sukhayan sukhita taravetva. Sadhu, sadhu.